Represent. Thank you for recording. Give it just one more minute. All right, well, we will begin since we have a short amount of time here, but welcome to everyone. I'm Jennifer Barajona. I'm happy to be a little bit of the MC for all of you today. If we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm the CEO of Norwalk ACTS, and we are thrilled to be hosting our first legislative forum this morning. If you don't know who your elected representative is, then please, we invite you to click on that link and plug in your address and make sure, because as we speak this morning and have a discussion with our elected officials, I'm sure it would be helpful for them if you said who represents you in Hartford. So we had some, the beauty of Zoom is it wasn't too disruptive. I don't know who else had school closings, but my children are upstairs and I've threatened them not to come down until 9:30 a.m. So that is helpful. So we didn't have to worry about canceling or postponing. So there are some benefits to Zoom. And so while it's a virtual breakfast, I raise a toast to you who have coffee mugs and welcome to all. So just going to review a little bit of the agenda, have Jesse pull up slides here. And if you're not by now 2 years in familiar with the Zoom features of sliding back and forth to see the slides versus people, in the middle, you can toggle back and forth, whichever you want to bring up. So we're going to have our elected officials introduce themselves in just a few minutes, followed by just a few brief data points. And then we're going to use the bulk of our time this morning to really hear from all of you, from our community members, because this is your opportunity to connect just a week or two before the legislative session for legislators to hear from you what's on your mind with some of our key areas. And we really hope that we come out of this with our elected officials looking more to Norwalk ACTS as a resource for not only local data, but connection to community and really hearing your voice. So just gonna take 2 minutes. This is repetitive for many of you, but maybe new to some. So I just wanna ground us in Norwalk ACTS and what we're all about. We went through a mission and vision revision over the fall. And so this is what we believe really needs to be at the center of moving the needle on outcomes for children. And, while our former mission to enrich and improve the lives and futures of all children is obviously still relevant, we spent the last year really drilling down on the strategies that are necessary to really move the needle at a systems level change. And, as such, we've developed our own theory of action, which we believe relies on what we call our cornerstones. So those are being grounded in data, which we're usually best known for, thanks to Paula and Ray, our dynamic data duo. But we are refocusing on centering equity and the focus on low-income children and brown and Black youth in our community as priorities. We are engaging the community in a much more deliberate way than we have in the past, coupling kind of the traditional grass tops that we've had with more grassroots, and then tying that all together by really using that disaggregated data and community voice to advocate for changes we believe are necessary to seek the outcomes that we desire. So with these grounding kind of cornerstones in mind, we convene cross sectors in the community to really co-develop solutions and strategies in the area of early childhood, out of school time, social emotional health, and workforce readiness. Next slide. And so today we're just going to focus a little bit more on our policy and advocacy cornerstone. It's the newest one. And as I mentioned, one that is kind of most evolving, and Jesse did a great job leading a group of community members over the summer and the fall to really create kind of what this looks like, for, some guiding principles in this work. And so I won't read them here, you can see them, but it's really about linkage between data, community voice, and engaging and empower community members to speak up for issues that are impacting them. I've said to many of you before, Stacey Abrams said in a conference I was in, if you want to if you want to get to solutions, you need to ask people who are closest to the issues that you're trying to seek. And so this is very much about that this morning. I don't know, I don't see him yet, but I'm seeing too many things. But, you know, in the early 2000s, just around the time Bob Duff was running for his first office as a state representative, I was in Bridgeport doing organizing work and talked to him. That was almost 20 years ago, talking about the need to really bring this kind of effort to Norwalk and create much more of a groundswell of community engagement around policy and making sure that our voices are being represented in Hartford. And so we're thrilled to really get this off the ground. We had a lot of one-on-one and small group meetings with our legislators last year, and we thank them for that. And this is the first time we're kind of gathering as a larger crowd. And so we appreciate you all joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Brandon Hayden. If you haven't met Brandon, we brought him on in November as the Cradle to Career Policy Director. We are one of 4 Strive Together partnerships in Connecticut. That includes our sister partnerships in Bridgeport, Waterbury, and Stamford. And so all of us, with the support of Strive Together, our national partner, are really taking a more of a look at policy because we know it's necessary to move the needle by engaging in that way. So we brought Brandon in. He's embedded and housed within Norwalk ACTS, but very much represents the Cradle to Career community in the 4 of us. So I'm going to allow Brandon to introduce our legislators.
Hi, my name is Brandon Hayden, and like Jennifer said, I'm the policy director for the 4 Cradle to Career cities, the Strive Together partnership. And right now we're waiting on some of the legislators to enter. They're having some Zoom issues, but I just wanted to throw it over to Representative Thomas, just to introduce herself a little bit, say where her district is, what parts of Norwalk she represents, and what committee she's on so far. While I work
Good morning, everyone. Sure. Thank you, Brandon. Hi, good to see everyone. I love these convenings because, oh, can you hear me with this headset? Okay, good. It sometimes malfunctions. Happy, I always see neighbors, friends, agencies that I'm very familiar with. And happily, I'm really glad to hear about this Cornerstone because civic engagement and action, anyone who knows me knows it's something I talk about all the time. I would love to see everyone in this call testifying in Hartford this year. I would really love to see Norwalk come together in a more coordinated manner to make our feelings known. We're doing a lot of great stuff here, and I think Hartford doesn't always know that. And I'd like to see more dollars come back here as well. That's all I'll say for now, but thank you for having me, and it's great to be here.
Thank you so much, Representative Thomas. And next, I want to introduce State Senator and Majority Leader Bob Duff. And Senator Duff, if you don't mind sharing your whole district, what district you represent, and then your committees as well.
Good morning. What was the last part, Brandon?
What committees you're on.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Bob Duff, State Senator, representing Norwalk and Dorian, Senate Majority Leader. And I serve as chair of the Executive and Legislative Nominations Committee and vice chair of the Legislative Management Committee.
Thank you, Senator
Brandon,
Duff.
if you know what, I'm going to jump in, Bob, good morning, and ask if you can just explain a little bit more to folks about what the role of Majority Leader means to folks. I think that would be helpful.
Sure. So the Majority Leader works with the Senate President and works on
Looks like we lost
Senator Duff for a little bit.
I'm back.
There he is.
I'm back. So sorry about that. The Majority Leader works with the Senate President to determine which bills get called, you know, and our caucus priorities and all that kind of good stuff. So hopefully that kind of gives you a small taste of kind of what the Majority Leader does. Kind of runs the floor on session days.
Thank you so much, Senator Duff. And next, I want to introduce Representative Lucy Dathan. And Representative Dathan, if you don't mind sharing your district, what parts of Norwalk you represent, and what committees you're on.
Absolutely. Sorry for my tardiness. I seem to have the wrong link in my calendar. Was sitting in a waiting room somewhere in the ether. Anyway, my name's Lucy Dathan. I represent part of Norwalk and part of New Canaan. I represent Silvermine, Broad River, Brookside, part of Cranberry, and there's one more. I did say Broad River. Sorry, it's a little early. And just West Norwalk. Thank you. I knew I had it. I'm just working on a little flurry this morning with the snow. Anyway, I also represent part of New Canaan, and I'm just in my second term of the legislature and really loving it. I'm vice chair of the Appropriations Committee, Human Services, the Insurance and Real Estate. I also sit on those two committees. I am also co-chair of a MAPOC subcommittee called Care Management, where we look at Medicaid and the care of the primary care offering within that program. So I'm delighted to be here today, and it's good to see everybody. And thank you, Norwalk ACTS, for putting this on.
Thank you so much, Representative Dathan. And I just want to acknowledge that Representative Terry Wood isn't able to make it this morning due to some issues she was having. And Representative Perron is going to be a little late, as so is Representative Sims. And with this, I want to turn it over to Danique to share a little bit about some of the data points that we have at Norwalk ACTS.
Thanks, Brandon. Good morning, everyone. So I will be sharing a couple of our data points related to early childhood, social emotional health, and college and workforce development. So locally, through the use of the ASQ, Norwalk ACTS tracks our youngest learners with the goal of every Norwalker being preschool and kindergarten ready, as well as demonstrates how, as a community, we're working towards a common metric to move outcomes for children. So much thanks and appreciation to all those who support our early childhood system. Based on the data point in front of you, this is one example of how we track and share data. So this is really to ensure a smooth transition from preschool to kindergarten. So what we know from the past couple of cohorts, we saw a significant drop during the 2020, between the 2020 and 2021 year of young people that did not attend preschool, obviously with potential implications based on the pandemic. Next slide, please. Other pieces, we know just based on our use of the ASQ, what the importance of this screener is. And we try to ensure that we're screening as early as possible. And why this is important. So really ensuring that this allows for professionals to check a child's development, help parents celebrate their child's milestones and know what to look for next, and to determine whether follow-up steps are needed. So we know also that early childhood interventions have huge academic, social, and economic benefits. So the graph in front of you, you can see that we had some real significant gains over the past couple of years, but based on the pandemic, that we would like to continue the momentum that we had before. So recognizing that we were at 67% ASQ ready and climbed to 74%. And we want to keep that momentum going as we are closing out, hopefully, the pandemic, but really just a demonstration of working towards a common metric to move the needle on outcomes for young people. Next slide, please. So some of the other information that we have just based on our social emotional health initiative. I'm sure that all of us understand that the mental health crisis that we're currently in has had impacts on us all, including our young people, as demonstrated in the US Surgeon General's recent white paper. and that this was a crisis even pre-pandemic for significant populations. So we're just recognizing that although we're in a pandemic now, that these mental health challenges have been around for quite some time, and that this is a systemic issue. For young people ages 10 to 24, before the pandemic, we knew that it was the second leading cause of death for this age category. And I think that the local data that's demonstrated through our partnership with Positive Directions and the Norwalk partnership really demonstrates where we are related to young people who are reporting depression, as well as young people locally who both have suicidal thoughts and have made a suicide attempt over the past year. So really recognizing that this is not only something that affects Norwalkers, but also is an issue that as a nation we're grappling with. We are working on how locally we can help support both the mental health system, as well as really ensuring that we are keeping our community as safe as possible. And then I'll pass it over to Jesse to talk about college and workforce development.
Sure. So a data point we wanted to highlight was approximately 38% of the last 6 Norwalk Public Schools graduating classes did not directly enroll into a post-secondary institution. So that's around 300 students, depending on the class size, each year that are not directly enrolling into a 2 or 4 year program. And so the key question then becomes is how do we support the students that are not pursuing a 2 or 4 year degree to ensure that they have kind of the skills, credentials, and certifications and pathways available to them in Norwalk. And currently, we don't have any data about what happens to these students once they graduate high school if they aren't attending college.
Great. Thank you, Danique and Jesse, for those really quick data points. We'll point out again later, but this is, these were, about 8 of hundreds of data points we have in multiple data dashboards and links that are available on our website, and we'll share that link in a little while. But I do see that Representative Perrone has joined us, and Representative Perrone, I just lost you on my screen, but if you can come off mute and introduce yourself and the committees that you sit on, that would be terrific.
Morning. How's everybody doing? Everybody staying warm?
We are. Thank you.
I'm Chris Perrone, State Representative from the 137th District. I sit on finance, energy, and banks, which in and of themselves don't seem to have a direct overlap, but certainly with finance and just my exposure and involvement with you guys, and certainly the rest of the delegation, I think that we stay on topic pretty well with everyone here. But I just appreciate you putting this together this morning, just informing us, giving us an update on the things that we need to focus going into the next session. So it's good to be here.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And Brandon, you can cue me if Representative Sims joins us. But what we want to do now is for our elected officials and those who weren't able to join our December convening, we meet quarterly as a full membership, usually around 100 of us gather. And in December, we really spent some time talking about what it means to use your voice and advocate. And the State and School Finance Group came and did an excellent workshop, including almost all of our 14 community advocates who were there, and really kind of learning how to connect their voice and data points to all of you. So this is our first chance to practice that. And so some are more familiar with this than others, but did want to give an opportunity to really let community members, and please use the raise your hand function if you want to make a comment or have a recommendation. So we can try to keep some order here. But I know Michelle Condorino from Open Doors, who is working closely with Jesse and Lamont Daniels and some others on a partnership with Norwalk Hospital and others to really be thinking about workforce readiness. And she has to leave at 9, so asked if she could weigh in first. So Michelle, if you're available to take yourself off mute and join in, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And, I really want to say thanks to Norwalk ACTS, who really sort of convened community providers around the topic of workforce development and really the absence of workforce development opportunities in the city of Norwalk. I think the workforce world is majoritively regional. And what tends to happen is Stamford and Bridgeport get all of the focus, and the expectation is that Norwalk residents will have to travel to one of those two places to be able to access some of those benefits. And so we're working hard to create hub here in Norwalk so that people can access the same opportunities without the additional burden of transportation to the classes. And, it's been an exciting project. And I think what is really important to recognize is as the Career Connect website has opened, and the portal should open for applications, I think on the 14th or 15th of February, not to forget Norwalk, that, if in regional applications, that opportunities are available to people in this city, not just the residents themselves, but located here, utilizing our partners, Norwalk Community College. And, we have, a huge need, particularly within our hospital and within, in our surrounding towns as well, in the healthcare field. It's really the most the dominant field of employment here in Norwalk. And so we want to ensure that, people are able to gain certifications that they can to be able to have livable wage jobs and have career advancement. So again, I just really want to thank Norwalk ACTS for leading the charge on this conversation. I think we're making some really good progress, and I'm hoping to see some real meaningful results over the next several months.
Thank you so much, Michelle. If there was any legislators that had a specific question for you, I'd open that up. Otherwise, we'll move on to next. No. Okay. Seeing none, and my team can help because I'm trying to do multiple things on the same screen. We will certainly keep you posted, Jesse. We'll keep you posted, working again closely with the city, as Michelle indicated, to really develop a coordinated system of workforce availability, readiness training programs in concert with NCC and others. And so that's kind of new, exciting work for us. And so we'll keep you posted. And looks like Carrie Bernier from NCC Foundation has raised her hand related. So go ahead, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to jump in here because I fully support everything that Michelle Condorino said, and it's been wonderful having some early conversations with them. And I wanted to highlight the great work being done by Norwalk ACTS and so many community partners to build career pathways, not just for high school students that are transitioning into the next stage of their life, but as Michelle mentioned, some more vulnerable adult populations too. And workforce readiness, I know, is such a buzzword for many of us right now, but I'd love to see increased public-private partnerships and encouragement to bring corporate partners and local employers to the table. I'm on the implementation team for Norwalk ACTS with workforce readiness, and we have been working very hard to identify the in-demand jobs that employers are seeking to fill, and then link the skills needed for training programs at NCC where I am, but also beyond. So that's kind of one area that I think could really use some enhanced focus, is coordination with the local employers and identifying those in-demand jobs that people are having trouble filling. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Dewan Wiggins from Youth Business Initiative. I see your hand next.
Hey everyone,
Morning.
what's up, Jen? How you doing?
I'm good. Good morning.
I know it was in you guys' newsletter this month, but I want to mention we are doing some workforce development program starting February 8th for young people. days a week from 5:30 to 7:30. And the great part of this program is that on the 9th week, we give so the businesses that we partner with will come in, they interview our students for potentially hiring our students. The goal is really to have employees come in to hire our students. And when they come in, we basically, you know, even before they come in really, but we talk to them and how we approach them. We say, listen, we're giving you a pool of students. Not only can you hire our students, but can you possibly give them 50 cents to $1 more because of the training that they will receive through going through this program. So we have some people that specialize in what they specialize in, that's teaching the program. We have like 4 volunteers, I believe, that will run this program. So please, and also I know they have the Mayor's Summer Youth Program with Darlene Young. So some things are happening. I think we just have to be everyone has to just hear about it, right? And just, you know, seek out the information. But things are happening, but obviously we have a lot of students in Norwalk that might need the training. So obviously the more help we get, the more better off we'll be. But it's a start, you know, and we have about 15 students signed up so far.
Thanks, Duan. That's wonderful. And, you know, that's really part of what we're trying to do is coordinate. There's so many great programs like Duan's, smaller programs, but, you know, many hands make lighter work. And so really trying to coordinate what trainings and programs like Duan's are available. I see Dorian and Laura, which I believe want to speak to some of the social emotional health pieces, but before we move on to that, would invite any of the legislators, particularly those who are working on some of the workforce readiness issues, to comment on what you may have heard from NCC, from Carrie, and from Michelle around some of the points that they raised.
Hi, this is Stephanie. I did, in the chat, I've been connecting with people. I do sit on the Commerce Committee, and obviously workforce development. I think Norwalk is further along than many cities with the Cradle to Career. And I actually have been speaking with some other agencies and the superintendent of schools. And I have mentioned to the governor, we want to try and get him here to see some of this work. So I am already working on that because I think the more people who know what we're doing here, the better off. And I would love to connect with all 3, Michelle, Carrie, and Duan. And feel free to email me. My email's in the chat, stephanie.thomas@cga.ct.gov, just to talk about any legislative priorities that might make sense, because everyone in Hartford is focused on workforce development.
Terrific. Representative Thomas, we appreciate that. And we know Representative Wood isn't here today, but has engaged with us in conversations around this as well. Just checking, anyone else want to weigh in?
This is Lucy here. Thanks for this. It's really great to hear about all these initiatives, and it is really proof in that the dollars that the state's putting into Norwalk ACTS is really going to work. I just hope that we hear from some of these programs during our appropriations meetings this year as we review our budget. It is so important that you know, our committee hears about some of the great things that are happening and some of the positive results, and you know, some of the data that we have to support these great works. So thank you to all the boots on the ground that are doing this. This is just incredible work, and it really is going to make a difference, because we all know that, you know, 4-year or 2-year college is not the right path for everybody, and there's a lot of other great options out there. And I'm so excited to be part of watching you do this wonderful work. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dathan. And I'd be remiss not to say that Representative Dathan and Representative Duff and others were very, Senator Duff, I apologize, very helpful. Lucy mentioned the Cradle to Career money. We were successful for the first time in a number of years in getting a small line item in the budget for the 4 Cradle to Careers in Connecticut, which will translate to, we're still working through DOL on this, but $25,000 in support of the backbone of Norwalk ACTS, which is really tremendous. I wasn't even going to put that on kind of our wish list yet for this year, but we will be, asking for that and hoping to increase that over the years because we do such important work in convening and data and bringing folks together. So thank you for that. I want to go ahead. Representative Perone, did you want to weigh in yet?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that I just want to piggyback onto the Cradle to Career. It's such a well-regarded program, and that our folks, by having that light item, by having that focus in the Appropriations Committee going forward, it's really it does galvanize a lot of support behind it. When there's a real target, it's a lot easier to bring people together and say, hey, look, this is part of what we're fighting for. But also, you do interestingly enough, you get people together by defending an issue like this. In the future, if they ever want to make adjustments. But I've been on the committee, the Commerce Committee in the past, and things like apprenticeships and early involvement in people that are you're right. 2 to 4 year schools, or as Representative Dathan said, 2 to 4 year schools aren't necessarily where people want to go, but there are careers out there, jobs out there for people that want to go a different track. And I think that my hats off to the Commerce Committee and Representative Caroline Simmons for all the work that she did as well before she ran for mayor. That work has been very important, but with folks like actually people in the room that are pushing for these things on that committee, I think are going to be helpful. So there, as been said, a lot of people are focused on this.
Thank you, Representative Perone. And, you make a good point, which is going to transition us over into our early childhood space, because, what the power of the Cradle to Career work is that we can see the evidence of what happens when providers come together and decide we want to move the needle on a certain area in the community. And that's exactly what we saw in the early childhood space over the last number of years, which when Danique mentioned that bump in ages and stages developmental ready for kindergarten, we saw with all the providers coming together and saying, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. We saw significant gains in a very important area that is essential to workforce, right? Like if we do not have good quality early child care and education, then we do not have a workforce. And we saw that in full effect at the beginning of the pandemic with so many people not able to send their children into to childcare, and just the havoc that wreaked on the workforce. So the two go very much hand in hand, even though they're at opposite ends of our Cradle to Career spectrum. So I do want to create some time. I see a number of hands for the early childhood work, and I'm going to start with Mary Oster. So go ahead, Mary, please.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Jen, and thanks to our legislators who are here. And I must say all of our legislators were very generous and gracious to meet with early care and education providers here in Norwalk, small businesses. We had great discussions. Two really key issues that are coming to the forefront. Our system is really crumbling. Our workforce, we have a very precarious situation in our workforce. And it's kind of that vicious circle where our providers can't afford to pay their staff more. And so their staff is leaving and nobody is coming into the field because they know they're not going to get paid well. They can do better somewhere else. The minute teachers get a bachelor's degree, when they're working in an early childhood program, they go to the public schools because they can make so much more. We know that childcare, as Jen said, is kind of the foundation of everything. I mean, if we don't have childcare, parents can't work. So it's really critical that we get a handle on some of this. I have said this so many times in the last couple weeks, we are our own worst enemy because families don't always know that there's a real problem because they bring their child to childcare. Everything is, it might be a different teacher, but by golly, the room is open, everything's clean, the kids are safe, they're having a good time, they're learning a lot. And we are scrambling behind the curtain to make sure that happens. And so, we are working also diligently on a state level to get parents involved in the Child Care for Connecticut's Future movement that anyone can join, by the way, to really get some momentum behind coalescing parents and staff and providers and anyone who's interested in this issue, because we know we need to build a better system. So I greatly appreciate advocacy by our legislators on the state level, and I appreciate all of your support. So thanks so much, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mary. I think I'd like to go through anyone from early childhood and then let maybe our representatives respond. Jade from All Our Kin, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jade Thomas. Again, I work for All Our Kin. We're a staffed family childcare network supporting educators in Bridgeport, New Haven, Stamford, Norwalk, and the surrounding communities. I believe in the Stamford, Norwalk area, we work with more than 400 family childcare educators. I wanted to talk about one of the issues that will be taking up this year. Family and group childcare providers experience really persistent housing and zoning barriers that prevent them from offering high quality care. For anyone who may not know, family childcare or group family childcare refers to care that occurs outside of a provider's inside of a provider's home. There is actually a 1996 Connecticut statute that prohibits local communities from using zoning and housing codes against home-based providers that seek to become licensed. Despite that statute, we've seen numerous educators who have really struggled to not only open but maintain their businesses because of prohibitive housing and leasing practices. So in 2018, All Our Kin and the Yale Law School partnered to study the scope of the problem and learn what other states were doing. The result was legislation. And since then, advocates in Connecticut, including Connecticut Voices for Children, the Connecticut Association for Human Services, the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance, and others have partnered to introduce legislation that would clarify the existing protections and also required municipalities to report that they're in compliance with the statute. The OEC Commissioner, Beth Bai, has said that Connecticut has a shortage of 51,000 infant and toddler slots, and we believe that this is a really easy, no-cost way to try and begin to address this problem. And then lastly, I just wanted to kind of second what Mary said about the need for increased funding. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Build Back Better, but I think that regardless of whether or not we receive federal investment, that there is a significant need to invest in the industry. The funds that educators received several months ago were not enough. We've really been asking educators to subsidize the industry for decades, and we can't go on doing that any longer, especially not when early childhood is so critical to not only children and families, but the economy here in this state. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jade. Beautifully said. Appreciate all the work that All Our Kin does. I'm going to ask Kathy DeCesare, who's the co-chair of the Newark Early Childhood Council, to come on next.
Thanks, Jennifer. I can't say enough in support of what you've just heard from Mary Oster and from Jade about the need for all of us to think about early childhood not as a separate thing when it comes to educating our children, but as an integrated part of our educational system that needs to be supported and funded and needs the opportunity for us to attract and retain workforce. There hasn't been an increase in school readiness funding since 2015. And so it's, I mean, as a small business person or even as a person running a household, I mean, you can't sustain or grow if you don't have the opportunity to increase your funding. And we have gaps in the early childhood system that are significant. The workforce development issue is probably the most critical in terms of keeping a sustainable early childhood system in place in Connecticut. There is a gap of $30,000 and more between what a preschool qualified trained teacher can earn in a district versus what they can earn, you know, in a program. And you know, I mean, what choice would you make, right? If it was you and you were supporting your family. We don't have a pipeline. We're very fortunate that we have NCC so that we have some educational opportunities, but frankly, we don't have a good educational system in Connecticut so that we can actually train more teachers. So we have to train them, we have to find them, train them, we have to pay them, and we have to think about preschool and early childhood as not something that we don't see as an integrated part of our educational system. Our responsibility for kids doesn't start when they enter kindergarten. And as, of course, as a lot of folks have said, you know, we really want to see a system that goes all the way back to when our kids are born, and we have parents who know what they can do to be their parents' best teachers. And that's where our Ages and Stages work comes in, and all the other programs that are happening. Birth to 3, very important. I know some of that is still in the legislative agenda. But if I could say one thing, I would say we need to change the financial system of support for early care and education, and we need to think of it as integrated into our whole education system. So thank you for that. And all the things that you've done, and the fact that you've been very responsive when Mary's asked you to come and visit and learn about our wonderful programs here in Norwalk.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate that. I'm going to invite our elected officials to weigh in on the early childhood space and some of what you heard and reflections before we enter our last segment, which will be on kind of the social emotional mental health space. So Representative Dathan, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and thank you to Mary and the team. You've done amazing work in Norwalk, and I'm just so proud to talk about what all the accomplishments that we're seeing, you know, coming out. There is so much more to do, and I think one of the key things that we need to address that Mary addressed is really the how we are, you know, remunerating our workers, because it is really critical that we have a good workforce and provide quality early education to these young people, because the things that you learn in that sort of early preschool years are really formative and really can springboard you into a successful elementary and educational career. And I was really pleased that we had the invitation and the opportunity to come look at some of these programs and hear about some of the issues that are being faced within the industry. And they are small businesses, and we need to make sure that they thrive. And I'm hoping to hear from some of the providers again during appropriations, so that we can really hear what's going on, because the results really, we need to make sure we can do as best we can. So thank you, Mary and team, and it's good to hear all of your stories, and look forward to continuing the dialogue. Thank you. Jen.
Thank you, Representative Dathan. And, you know, for those who aren't as familiar with the process, appropriations is a very important committee, and we rely on you, Representative Dathan, to let us know if we need to mobilize and get some voices on a certain day and time. Please just pick up the phone and we will make sure that happens. Senator Duff, I see your hand.
Yep, good morning again. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mary, and everyone else in the early childhood space. I think that, you know, as I've said many times, I think I speak for my colleagues as well, that the pandemic has certainly exposed the cracks in the system that's already there and just made it even worse. So anyway, you know, I think whatever ways we can be helpful in that area, and speaking with the commissioner and others, I know OEC has done a very good job, but we have other, I think, larger, deeper issues than just kind of a conversation or just a solution. So I think it's areas in which we need to have goals and work through one by one, because I think this is probably a multi-year effort. I think everybody's trying as hard as they can and working as hard as they can to meet some of these challenges. The pandemic's certainly not helping, but the more we can whittle down some of these bigger systemic issues, I think that allows us the space to figure out how best to serve families, and so that parents can get to work, kids get the early childhood education they need, and they can be set up for school in the way that provides the most success for them.
Thank you, Senator Duff. Appreciate that. And, you know, that's the heart of collective impact work, is just work better and more efficacious, right? If we all know what each other are doing and are using data to really pinpoint where the issues are, then we can really take advantage of that. I want to transition us for the last final quarter of our time together into an issue that's really near and dear to my heart as a social worker, and that's social emotional health and mental health. And as you heard, some of those very sobering statistics that Danique mentioned at the top of the hour here, we have a real crisis. And I know there's a number of people who have asked to speak specifically on their experience. And I'm going to start with Dorian Mara Anderson, who is a parent here in Norwalk and has been very patient having her hand up all this time. So thank you, Dorian, and please come off mute.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Jen, and the whole Norwalk ACTS backbone staff for putting this together, and for our elected officials for being here and part of this conversation. My name is Dorian Marr Anderson. I've lived in Norwalk most of my life. I attended Norwalk Public Schools. I taught as a special educator here in the district. I'm here today as a deeply concerned parent, a Norwalk ACTS community advocate, a Norwalk High School SGC member, and a former classroom teacher. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the mental health crisis we're experiencing and the need for more social, emotional, and mental health supports for our students and families and staff within our Norwalk Public Schools and the larger community. While some are focused on academic rigor, many of us are focused on the importance of mental health first, Maslow mental health over Bloom academic rigor, if you will. In order to be able to meet the academic needs of our students, we must address the mental health needs. The Norwalk partnership that's been referred to in the recent youth survey highlights the struggles that our students are experiencing. The data speaks volumes, and it is a cry for help. The depression, the suicidal ideation and attempts, what the LGBTQ community is going through needs to be addressed. Many children are dysregulated, disconnected, anxious, depressed, don't feel safe, and need supports of varying degrees to feel well again and to be able to function and deal with life and everything that has been thrown at them. My oldest is a senior at Norwalk High School. The only normal school year she has had was her freshman year. This year alone, on top of everything that the kids are experiencing with the ramifications of the pandemic, they have been subjected to bomb threats, weapon threats with SWAT team coming in, numerous fire alarms and fighting, and they have lost many experiences. My youngest is an 8th grader at Nathan Hale. To put this in perspective, she will be going on to high school next year, but she hasn't had a normal school year since she was in elementary school. Again, the dysregulation and mental health needs are very apparent at the middle school level as well. They have had to deal with fighting, racial incidents, fire alarms being pulled, etc. And they have missed out on numerous experiences that would have otherwise have helped them to grow and develop at this age. I wanted to just take a moment to publicly thank all of our teachers and support staff. Hopefully some of them will be watching this video, and all of the adults and providers who are working tirelessly with our children. They're amazing and true heroes. Okay, so thinking about some things that are needed, our teachers need our support. They have become our first responders for our children during this pandemic and even prior. Feedback from teachers, school administrators, and students clearly show the needs are great, and that's a very big understatement. We need to look out for the mental health of our teachers, the whole oxygen mask first. In order for our teachers to do what they need to do and what are expected to do, we really need to be in touch with them and find out what they need and get feedback from them. So as I'm thinking about all this, I'm realizing something else that this pandemic has shown us in terms of education is the need to reflect on what's working and what's not working, to think creatively and outside the box. So I'm just going to throw this in there. Well, we have our elected officials here as well. I would love to see this as an opportunity to bring back and improve upon an alternative school. And I really don't like that term. I feel like it's just another school that's needed. As a way to help address the social and emotional mental health needs, as well as the educational and future ready needs of our students who aren't having their needs met and or could thrive in a smaller school setting. I mean, Jesse mentioned the college and workforce data, and that's telling. And also, I don't know who's aware of this, but the number of students that are disconnected and not even in school this year is staggering. And so those numbers in terms of successful graduation and where they go afterwards, we clearly need to think outside the box. In terms of access to mental health, I feel like that's a crucial issue right now. Just on a personal level, I'm dealing with my insurance company who has told me there is nobody within a 30-mile radius in our insurance network that I can take my children to seek help for their mental health. I've already escalated this, and luckily I've dealt with insurance companies for years. I kind of know the game that has to be played, but why should I have to play this game? And how about all these other parents that don't know how to do this? I'm very concerned. So my question for the insurance company, is it that you didn't do your job and get enough providers in your network? Or and it's also coupled with, there's such a great need, but to not have one person within a 30-mile radius that children are, my kids' age can go see, that's a crisis. So.
Thank you, Dorian. We could, I hate to cut you off because I know we could spend an entire hour just on this topic alone. I think that is an excellent point. We've had personal experience in my family with that exact same issue, but I know we have only a few minutes left. And thank you, Dorian, so much. I do want to just ask we have 3 more hands, and I do want to honor and try to give everyone a chance, but to ask that you keep it to a minute or two so we can wrap up and hear from our legislators on this particular topic. So I'm going to ask Laura to go ahead and weigh in.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Laura. I'm from Guatemala. I live here in Norwalk for almost 8 years. So based on my personal experience, I would like to raise awareness on racism and discrimination with the medical field. The racism and lack of medical attention I received during my pregnancy back in 2020 led to the unfortunate death of my unborn child and a near-death experience for me. I am now a personal advocate for women and raise awareness in understanding their rights. This was a very traumatic time for me, and there were few resources and means of support available to me and my mental health. The lack of mental health resources, whether it's in the community or in the schools, have negatively affected not only women and adults, but children as well. My son recently went through a segment of traumatic events. We were in desperate need on unaffordable services, but nowhere to be found, especially for an immigrant family. The resources that we received were not effective, especially since sessions were scheduled only once a month. A lot of people are suffering in silence, and sometimes we don't know what is happening outside. So I ask from the bottom of my heart to implement education on racism in the medical field and education on how medical policies hurt or prevent people from getting the care they need. In memory of my son Matthias, please I ask for your help. I ask for many, including the immigrant community, access and cost of mental health services is the #1 barrier for families to get the help they need. Increasing the ratio of social workers in the schools and increasing funding for mental health services through a school-based health center is critical, important. This will be helpful to both the child increases to receive immediate support and for the family who may not have insurance or can afford services. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope you really work for us.
Thank you so much, Laura. And nothing is more powerful than using a very painful story to highlight an advocacy need. So we are so sorry for your loss, and thank you for coming on and speaking to that. I saw Anthony DeLorio's hand up, and he, I think the segue, what you asked for, school-based health center support. I'd like to give Anthony a minute to just talk about that quickly.
Thank you, Jen. I'll try to make it real quick because I know we're running out of time. And thank you, Norwalk ACTS, for putting this together. And I do want to say I understand the senator and the representatives. You guys are taking on some complex issues, so we really appreciate it. And thank you for listening. Also, in all the comments, everybody's really did a good job, made this easy for me to say. But if we could do something not just about funding for school-based health centers, which was in the Sandy Hook report as one of the solutions for dealing with major mental health issues. Obviously, you've heard it's very critical, but I think if possible, I don't know how this works, but to look at reimbursement rates for school-based health centers. It's very difficult to get the reimbursement rates. It's a complex system. I think it should probably be loosened up for school-based health centers. They're seeing the kids, but they're not getting paid. So, I mean, if there's anything there that you want to know more about, I won't take up the time here, but how you get reimbursed is almost impossible. So unless you're a hospital or somebody has 50 million staff to figure that out, it's complicated. On another note, obviously mental health is really important for safety and a million other reasons, and the funding has stayed flat for many, many years. I would also say when it comes to homelessness, we've got a lot of people. We put 60% of our people who are formerly homeless or facing homelessness back to work. And this is a good thing because there's a lot of employers looking for people who are making minimum wage. And I think that's an easy thing to do. There's lots of people out there who are couch surfing or doing things who could easily be back to work if they had a program for not just workforce development, but a place to live where they were safe. Then the last thing I'll say is, and this is kind of outside the human service thing, I understand that there's a large portion of people who live in Fairfield County who work in New York City. The pandemic was kind of a silver lining for us because a lot of those people didn't go to work in the city anymore. So they paid state taxes. So now there's some revenue here. I would say we've got to be holistic. If we look at our future, not just the next 2 years, how do you keep those people here in the future instead of moving back to New York and taking the revenue with them? And I would say simply, I know the governor's talked about this, but I would focus on those trains. I'd make it quicker to get to New York City so that we don't have everybody leaving and the revenue leaving with them once this pandemic ends, if it ends. So thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And I am going to ask for a grace of 5-10 minutes if people have to leave right at 9:30. I do understand, but I want to honor our two final speakers who had their hands up before we cut it off. So quickly, Marissa.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Really appreciate it being here today and having the opportunity to speak. I am a lifelong resident of Norwalk, a graduate of Norwalk Public Schools, currently a parent of a 6th grader in Norwalk Public Schools, and I work with Mid-Fairfield Child Guidance Center, an outpatient children's behavioral health clinic here in Norwalk. As you know, and as we've heard today, the mental health system has been flooded and beyond capacity for a long time. The solutions require both immediate and long-term action, and I can think of nothing more important than addressing this crisis. In December, Mid-Fairfield, along with Family and Children's Agency and other community-based organizations, responded to the crisis bomb threats at Newark High School. The trauma was and continues to be so significant and was truly a ripple effect felt by all, not just at Newark High School, but at Nathan Hale, where my son was put on lockdown, Merrimack Elementary School, and all of the schools throughout the district. So what can we do? We must listen to students, parents, and providers' voices to come up with real solutions to address this crisis. Like everything else, and as Jennifer mentioned before, those seeking care and those who provide care are the ones closest to the solutions. We must ensure that access to care is meaningful and culturally competent and can be found in schools, in community clinics, in primary care offices, and in people's homes. We must urgently invest in our community nonprofits who make up the bulk of the children's mental health delivery system and are the ones delivering intensive supports, including mobile crisis. Federal and state dollars must be immediately deployed to support existing capacity. As Anthony mentioned, we must enhance school-based mental health care and ensure every district has partnerships with local mental health and social service providers supported with federal and state healthcare and education dollars. As someone who has personally struggled with mental health and knows so many, I really urge the legislator to look hard at what we can do to support our community and our families, not just for today, but for the future of our children.
Thank you so much, Marissa. And finally, Sonia, thank you, Representative Dathan. I know you have to dash to another meeting. I appreciate you staying, and I apologize. We're really good usually about staying right on time, but I do want to just honor Sonia, who was in the queue with her hand up.
Good morning. My name is Sonia Morales. I am a social worker in the area of Norwalk. This is my voluntary job, but I'm just advocating today for the children mental health in Norwalk because my agency received all these crises and all these cases from DCF when they are reported from the schools. So please hire school psychologists, school counselors, and social workers, at least one for every 250 children in the schools. That will be a bill, that will be a legislation, that will help greatly for the mental health of the children in Norwalk. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sonia. Excellent way to end with a specific ask. I think I can speak for the legislators when we don't just come with problems and issues, but solutions to help. I think that is where we can be most effective. So in the last few moments, I'll invite any of the representatives that remain if they wish to weigh in on anything they heard in terms of the mental health.
Hey, Jennifer, it's Bob again. I'll just jump in real quick and say that I think for all of us in the legislature this year, we're going to be taking a good hard look at mental health services. I mean, we have worked over the years to try and address that. As we know, it's a tough issue to always get your arms around, and one that's not cheap. But I think that based on everything we've seen through the pandemic and the effects, especially what we've heard from parents, school parents, and as a parent myself, I understand that we've got to do.
Uh-oh, I think we lost Bob again.
Until he comes back, I'll jump in if you don't mind.
There I am. Sorry.
Oh wait, he's back. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, Stephanie. I'll turn it over to you. But anyway, I don't even know where I stopped. But I would just say that listening to the parents and being a parent myself, we all understand what's happening, and that I think all of us want to do what we can to bolster up mental health services for kids, and because it's impacting their educational outcomes. And impacting the way they socialize and how they feel and their success in life. So we've got to view the pandemic not just as a bump in the road, but something that is impacting them, that could be impacting them for the long term. And how do we address that better in the schools and outside the schools as well? So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, Senator Duff said it all. So I do just want to echo that sentiment that Lucy left in the chat. This mental health is a top priority for all of us in the House have been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. So I'll just take this opportunity to talk about advocacy because it's so important. And until I got to that building, I don't think I understood exactly how important it was for people to be very active. So I would just encourage everyone on this call to even write up exactly what you said today and not only send it to your representatives, but it would also be most impactful to send it to the committee chairs who head the relevant committees, because they really have the primary role in shaping what is even heard, considered, etc. So we can call those committee chairs on your behalf, but it's also helpful if they hear from you directly. And as Senator Duff said, systems change is a long process, and just having conversations. When I opened, I mentioned that I had met with many of the agencies here over the last couple of weeks. I encourage every agency always to reach out to your rep, do a 20-minute, 30-minute catch up. What are you doing? What's going on? What are the big problems? It really helps us stay informed and be able to communicate with our colleagues when we hear that something might be addressed. So once again, Norwalk ACTS, thanks for having me. These meetings are so important, and thank you all for your stories.
Thank you, Representative Thomas, and I couldn't have scripted that better. Thank you for wrapping up like that and encouraging our membership to be active. And we're really trying hard to demystify kind of the process of what it means to engage with elected officials. And hopefully this today, for some who hadn't done it before, shows you that, you know, Bob and Stephanie and Lucy and Chris, they're just regular people like you and me and need to hear from you. And so thank you to everyone who used your voice this morning to share. Jesse, if you could just throw up the last slide so folks know how to get in touch with us if they don't already.
I think Chris was going to quickly say
something.
something.
I'm sorry, I didn't see Representative Perrone. I apologize.
That's all right. I was just sitting here being normal. No. So look, I just want to touch base on what Stephanie said. Basically, you know, an individual legislator can set a path, but you know, it's advocacy that moves the mountain. And you know, it really does move the needle, and that really is played out every day in the legislative office building. So just, you know, that's, people really need to get that you know, that focus and you know, group effort really makes a difference. I think that telehealth is an issue that is an area that really needs to be explored. I think there's some low-hanging fruit there where you know, not every insurance company, not everybody wants to play ball with telehealth. And the fact of the matter is that we're living in, you know, COVID just changed the game completely, where telehealth is now, you know, it's really, you know, expected, and it needs to be, you know, an affordable and functional and overall usable asset for mental health, because it is, it's a no-brainer. And that, I think that's where part of our focus needs to be. And I just want to say thank you to Norwalk ACTS for putting on obviously a great informative presentation. And I think that's all I have to say now. I'm going to go out and shovel.
Thanks, Representative Perrone. And I'll also give a plug for teletestimony. In addition to telehealth, that was, of all the things in the pandemic, for my ability to sit in my pajamas and testify at 11:30 at night on multiple occasions was fabulous. So we do hope that
service first. Yeah, we aim to please.
Yeah, but I do honestly, and I know Laura, who spoke earlier, testified a number of times. It's an access and an equity issue, particularly for those of us downstate, down in Lower Fairfield County, to get up to Hartford and to really engage community. As you all know, it's mostly the grass tops and the nonprofit leaders and everyone who come up, because what working parent can get to the Capitol and sit around for 10 hours waiting to testify, myself included. I, you know, rarely would do it, but last session was really wonderful to be able to have that access. So we hope that the legislature continues to offer that even post pandemic in some way, shape, or form. So thank you all so much. We know it was a little bit of a bumpy road for some this morning with the snow, but hopefully, again, having it virtually aided that issue and we didn't have to worry about canceling. If you're not familiar with Norwalk ACTS, please, and you're not on our mailing list, please make sure we do a monthly consolidated mailing list, as Duan mentioned earlier. The data that we put up, as well as numerous other data points, are available on our data page. And then please follow us on social media. The couple upcoming meetings that we have are Out of School Time Initiative and Social Emotional Health Initiative, both meet next week. And then our quarterly convening will be on March 15th. We invite legislators. We know you'll be in session, but data presentation by Paula and Ray was so helpful last year in March, and we're going to replicate that. So thank you for allowing us to go a few minutes over, and we wish everyone all the best and stay healthy.